Hi, I'm here with Lisa Marshall from Embellish, and we're at her home that she recently moved into, and we're going to do a walkthrough with her and let her showcase some of the design elements, some of the ways that she thinks as far as designing a home and working with clients and trying to figure out what their needs and wants are. So Lisa, one of the things that I think about a lot when looking at houses now, as I am trying to learn and grow as a builder and wanting to learn more about architecture, design myself, is that we see a lot of trends and stuff come and go over time. You know, we had the shiplap phase, black homes, and all these different things that you see come in really strong and then they disappear in 10 years. And then there's also this element of you buy a home that might be 20 years old and you come in, you feel like, oh, I've got to update everything in here. So as a designer and me as a builder, I'm thinking I want to give a customer who's looking for a custom home or a design a more timeless home that they won't feel like in 10 years, oh, I've got to redo everything because everything I picked is no longer relevant to today. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't know if there is anything that's truly timeless, if that makes sense, because any kind of style comes and goes, you know, like 10 years is a good amount of time actually. But I feel like if you just kind of stay away from super ornate or, you know, super stark contrast, like like you're talking about the black and white farmhouse trend like that, and then everybody painted everything gray and gray floors. When you're looking at the main things that you're going to spend the most amount of money on, like the flooring, you know, going with a gray flooring, that is going to be a huge expense to have to replace. So that was definitely a trend. If you jumped on that, you're probably sorry that you did at this point. So kind of sticking more with things that feel a little bit more traditional. But then like in this house, for instance, I feel like it's not really traditional, but it has cleaner lines. Like I don't have a lot of like ornate things that I feel like are gonna like go out of style in a couple of years. Like everybody for a while was like the whole Tuscan theme and the textured walls and the very ornate light fixtures and things like that.
What kind of guidance comes to mind when you start thinking about colors and that kind of thing? And especially not just paint colors, but like flooring colors, for example. Like I noticed your floors are this nice medium brown, I guess I would call it. I don't know. And I feel like these floors are gonna look as awesome today. 50 years from now, someone's gonna walk in here and still feel like these floors look great.
Yeah, I think when you go to the super light or you've got like orange undertones, yellow undertones, I think if you just pretty much stay with neutrals when it comes to natural materials like woods, you're probably pretty safe.
Okay, so Lisa, when I look at whether they're historic properties, new properties, one thing I notice when I'm looking at, let's say, French homes in France, and I'm looking for like a vacation
style,
rental.
For sure,
Love that style.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a rustic French country, and I'm looking at this online and everything looks beautiful and rustic. The flooring, they got the beams, it's all very original. And then I move to the kitchen and they have put in this like super modern looking kitchen. And it feels like all of a sudden I've been transported to I don't know where. It doesn't fit anymore. And I know kitchens are hard, especially on like a historic home like that, because they didn't do kitchens as we do them today. So I'm just curious, when you're designing a kitchen like what you have here, which is beautiful, I mean, what's the thought process in designing? I feel like you got some good knowledge on this subject. What makes a kitchen good for 20 years?
To me, it's just the cleaner lines really stand the test of time better than like, you know, for a while that was a trend to do all this glazing and all of this other stuff. And then solid white kitchens, which I personally never really liked. I just feel like you need a little bit of contrast and warmth for interest, right? So, and in this kitchen in particular, I wanted some warmth, but it's so massive and I have this 12-foot ceiling that's like, how do you bring warmth into a space like that? And a couple of things that I kicked around, like I thought, you know, because like these, what do you call it, dirty kitchens are a big trend right now, which I could have done that, you know, because I could have divided the space, but in the way we function, I like a big open space. I like for the family to be able to gather and somebody be working and not have to go into a different room to be working on food, because we all do it together, right? So if this were all white and all these cabinets went all the way 12 foot up, or there was this blank space above, it just wouldn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so I added the beams and added a different color in some of the cabinetry, and I went with a warmer, not a solid white. So it's more of a taupey kind of color.
Which it looks great. And so this might be a question that is hard for you to answer. It might be like asking a musician, how do you write your music?
Yeah.
But it may just come naturally to you. But how do you select a wood stain mix with the paint and it just turns out so awesome? Or is that just natural to you? Or is there inspiration there?
There's always inspiration. You know, I don't think there's necessarily ever an original idea. I look to other designers that I admire and love their work, and like I love a lot of French homes. I love to look in, you know, magazines and online and get inspiration through that, and I'll be like finding bits and pieces that I'm like, oh wow, I really love that and want to incorporate that, and then kind of bringing the same wood into a different room that kind of makes it feel a little bit more cohesive. And I know they've been doing a lot of light cabinets lately too, and those are really beautiful, but I wanted a lighter floor and darker, warmer cabinet color.
Okay, Lisa, so let's say I come to you and I'm ready to build a home, and I'm seeking you out because I need some design help.
Okay.
What questions are you going to ask me that would help you learn from me what it is to help you actually generate what it is that's in my head?
I think floor plan for sure is probably the first thing to keep in mind, because, you know, a lot of the questions would be, how many members are your family? Do you have any extended family members? Do you have like in-laws that need, you know, a separate entrance? Or how do you live? How old are your children? Do you entertain a lot? Do you envision an indoor-outdoor space? Is that important to you? Or do you guys like to watch a lot of TV and want to have like a theater room? How important is it to you to have large closets or master suite that's an oasis, or do you not really care about that kind of thing? Of course, a lot of it depends on budget, and you know that, how you can achieve those things. I think those are, you know, just kind of lifestyle, trying to get more than style.
How they're going to use the home. What's the function of the home need to be? Are there things when you talk to people, you bring up budget, are there things that stand out in your head that when you're talking to someone like, okay, I know we've got constraints here, so I really want to push them to use more of their money in what area or areas?
And that too would depend on the wants and what's important to some people. Like for instance, in this home, to me, it was this view was super, super important. So, and all about, you know, indoor, outdoor living and stuff. So I knew going into this project, I was gonna spend money on windows and doors because I wanted them to be as large as possible and a lot of glass on the back side of the house, and cabinets, because that's something that's important to me. I wanted a certain look with cabinets. I knew I was going to go higher up with my cabinets, and I just wanted a better quality that's going to really hold up over time. So yeah, those are the kind of things that you would ask the client, you know, what's important to you, because there are other people who, you know, maybe like to see outside, but they don't want to spend the extra money to get 10 foot by 25 foot sliding door, right? So
I think it's important to point out that you have the experience and knowledge to know, okay, I have this great view. I need to make sure I allow in my budget the window and doors that would allow me to be able to take this in as I want.
Yeah.
And then you bring up cabinets. You know, cabinets are expensive, but you can buy cheap cabinets, but you're going to be replacing them.
Yeah. For sure, and it's like anything else, it's like you think about the main things that you're not going to replace in 5 years or that you don't want to, it's worth spending the little extra money, like the flooring. There's some areas where tile you can maybe splurge on a little bit of decorative, and then there's a lot cheaper options that can kind of make up for it in other areas, and, you know, upstairs bathrooms and things like that.
I don't think we could overemphasize to customers and clients the importance of, where it's possible, spending your money on that upgraded material.
Yeah.
Because I cannot tell you how many times, and I'm sure you've run across this as well, I talked to a customer who's like, we put in this cheap LVP and now we need to replace it, and that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
or something like that. And
Yeah.
then they're going to spend more than if they just went with
Right.
or, and
Right, because
same
then you've got
thing-
the tear out and the
That's right.
redo.
And same thing can be true of your windows and your cabinets, absolutely true.
Right.
And that's a big expense that, as you said, you don't want to replace that in 5 years.
No,
And that's
no.
a huge expense to incur 5 years
And some
in.
people maybe, in their kitchen, they don't really cook a lot, they eat out or whatever. So maybe, you do less expensive countertops and, don't do all tile backsplashes and higher end appliances, those kinds of things. So that's where just talking through with the customer how their lifestyle is, you would find out what they actually need to be spending the money on. So.
Do you find yourself as the designer being in the director's chair often on a project, or is it just a big range between some customers want to give their input on everything?
Yeah.
Or it's just a
It's all over
range?
the place, yeah, for sure. A lot of people don't have the time. I think a lot of people going into a new build don't recognize the number of decisions.
And the workload that's actually
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Like just things as simple as, how much of a lip do I want here, and how do I inset that, and do I want this boxed out or just running straight into it? There's just tons and tons of decisions every single day, and just the average person that's going to build a house doesn't even know they need to make those decisions. So, and it's just super time consuming. Most people obviously have other jobs to do, and I think that's one of the benefits of having a designer, because I know all those decisions that are going to need to be made and all the little details that maybe even the person building doesn't necessarily need to know that. They just need it to come together for them.
Yes, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
As a client coming to a designer, they really need to be able to trust you. And because of these decisions like you're talking about, they need to be able to say, I know Lisa, I've seen her work. It's amazing. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
We are aligned on the direction of my home.
Yeah.
I need to be able to allow her to make these decisions because I can't.
Right.
I don't have the ability to do that. And they're probably not best suited to make that choice either.
Right, and that's where a good builder comes in too, watching the project and seeing some of those possible things that could go wrong, and getting ahead of it.
Anticipating.
Seeing something that a sub maybe did a way that wasn't spec'd out or whatever, and they catch it and just take care of it. I think that's a huge deal, to be able to trust a builder to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Let's talk about a topic that you and I have discussed before that I think is both near and dear to our hearts, and I think probably has become that way through experience maybe. And that is pre-planning. I want to hear from you, especially just finishing this build.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on planning things out before you put a shovel in the ground.
Yeah, before you break ground. It's such a good idea. Just because the number of decisions that need to be made, nobody wants to be called 7 a.m. on Monday morning and say, I need a decision about where you want this, or what color you want, or what tile you want in this room, and I need it in 2 hours. Nobody wants to do that.
As you're getting ready to go to work.
Exactly.
Trying to get
you have
your
nothing
day
else
started,
to do. I'm going to drop everything and make this decision. So if all of those decisions are made up front, and it also helps with the subs too, to be very clear about what's going to happen when they come into the job. They know what they need to be doing. It just creates so much stress if you have to make those decisions on the fly.
I'm curious, who needs to be driving that pre-planning bus? Is it the builders, the designers who need to be educating customers that, hey, this time needs to be spent up front? I mean, who's at fault here, and what do we do about it?
Well, I know there's a lot of builders that don't do it. You're hoping to improve that situation, and a lot of builders don't, necessarily work with designers, but I think that's a big mistake for sure, because that frees up more time for them, because the designer can be the direct liaison with the client. But if you know a timeline up front of what's going to happen, how does this process even work? Like, a lot of people don't know, hey, I've got to get my appliances picked out before I even think about putting a pencil to the cabinet design in my kitchen or the layout, because you can't build a cabinet without knowing how big this appliance is.
That's right.
I think it would be nice to have timelines too, when things are going to happen. And I know that's hard because sometimes subs are busy, they can't get there when they need to get there, or there's a delay on materials or whatever, but just a general guideline.
If we are able to pick those things beforehand, the delay on materials can often be avoided, and timelines can often be established well in advance. Customers are excited. They're ready to see some action. You know, when they get to us, usually it's like, all right, you know, I'm ready to do something. Do you have any thoughts about how do we accurately and effectively tell these customers and really get the importance across of we need to really spend time in this pre-construction phase and getting this right? Like, how can we show them or tell them or explain to them how much freedom this is going to bring them in their build process, how much smoother it's going to make the process, and valuable to the whole thing, because they're going to walk away happier and we're going to walk away happier.
No surprises.
If all this is done beforehand. How can we get them to recognize that?
That's a really good question. I mean, just talking them through, we have a process where we're doing like the book that basically has all specs, all of the materials, and it's all laid out for them. And then there's no questions for, like, you know, change orders. As a builder, I'm sure that's super frustrating, because it's like, if you don't have something specced out to begin with, how can you say that's a change order? Because they don't know what they're getting anyway, you know? So I think it's just meeting with the clients and educating them on, you know, this is going to go so much smoother if we have all these decisions made up front.
I've relayed this to people before, that talking with other builders and customers, that I have got the feeling that both parties walk away in an unplanned project feeling like that didn't go super great.
Right.
And the builder's not incredibly happy, and the customer is kind of frustrated with the process, but neither one is able to put their finger on, if we'd have spent the time pre-planning, that would have alleviated
communication. It's key. And I mean, I'm not perfect at it for sure. I've got a lot to learn, but I'm seeing, like you said, through kind of processes that have not worked to my benefit or to my customer's benefit, right? It's just, we got to do it different next time. You know, this has got to be communicated up front, and we've got to make these decisions, and so the customer is completely clear on what they're getting when the decision's made, and they don't have to think about it again.
Since I'm a builder, you're a designer, what is there value in having both those parties present in this pre-construction phase? For
sure. You mean builder and designer?
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Is there any specifics or things that come to mind? Or
I think a lot of builders work differently too, so, and designers do too, for sure, as far as like the timeline, you know, that's definitely helpful.
I guess if they're on the same page right from the beginning, that really does help. I think you're right. You brought up a design book.
Yes.
Talk about the design book.
Well, it's something we're working on. Learning to do better is the organization of it. Once you have your floor plan and your elevations, and then you start picking out materials on the exterior, whether we want siding or brick or stone or whatever those things are, and get those selections made. And everything in this book is laid out and organized in that way. Here's my flooring, here's my lighting, here's my plumbing fixtures, and even the plumber, sometimes they'll just, you know, they'll go in and rough it in. Well, did you know that I was going to do a wall-mounted faucet? That's a whole different ball game, right? So if you have this book, and I would love to get it to where we're doing, you know, some kind of something we put up on the project and it's scanned, and so each contractor can come in, and when they're ready to do their work, they know exactly how to lay the tile. All of those things. So all of that stuff is spec'd out in this design book that the client would get, the builder would get.
Try to remind myself of this all the time, is no customer's ever complained like, man, that went good, but he just communicated too much. He told me what was going on too often. Like no one, that's not
I just knew every detail of what was going to happen here.
That is not going to happen.
That wouldn't be a complaint, no.
Lisa, thank you so much for walking us through your gorgeous home. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you and get some insight from you. You are very experienced, and I always enjoy getting to have these kind of discussions with you. So I appreciate it very much. And
my pleasure. We love working with you guys too.
Well, thank you. So if customers want to reach out to you and work with you at Embellish, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Just give us a call. look us up online.
All right. Well, appreciate it again. Thank you.
My pleasure.